Hello and welcome. This is Notibot Yenji. Tonight, we're taking a closer look at the escalating tensions in the Middle East as the US-Iran standoff continues to unfold. President Trump's hawkish stance on Iran has led to a series of events that are having far-reaching consequences. We'll examine the economic fallout of Trump's policies, the potential benefits for Iran's minorities, and the surprising role of African energy producers. From Washington to Tehran, and from the US to the Middle East, we'll break down the latest developments in this complex and volatile region. For the second time this month, the escalating US-Iran conflict is leaving Washington's top diplomat speechless as President Trump's aggressive stance backfires in Tehran. Good evening. I'm your name, and welcome to our news recap. China's President Xi Jinping is sitting quietly on the sidelines as the situation in the Middle East continues to deteriorate. The conflict between the US and Iran has taken a turn for the worse, with the US pulling out of a crucial nuclear deal with Iran and escalating sanctions. The US decision to withdraw from the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action (JCPOA) deal, also known as the Iran nuclear deal, was announced by President Donald Trump in May. The move was widely criticized by world leaders, including European powers and Iran itself. The sanctions imposed on Iran by the US have had a devastating impact on the country's economy. The country's currency has plummeted in value, and inflation has soared. The situation has become so dire that Iran's economy has been ranked as the worst in the world by the International Monetary Fund. As the conflict escalates, China is staying out of the fray. The country has maintained diplomatic relations with both the US and Iran, and is keen to avoid getting drawn into the conflict. However, China's interests are likely to be severely impacted by the situation. The war is working out well for Xi Jinping, but further out things may get trickier. As the situation in the Middle East continues to deteriorate, China's relations with the US and its regional allies are likely to be put to the test. We will continue to monitor the situation and provide updates as more information becomes available. We're taking a closer look at the latest numbers that show a significant shift in public opinion on the nation's economic performance. President Donald Trump's economic approval rating has hit an all-time low, according to a recent national poll. The rating, which is now at 29%, is significantly lower than even the weakest mark recorded during Joe Biden's presidency, which stood at 32%. This finding is particularly notable given the current fragile economic situation, with the 2026 midterms approaching and voter anxiety rising over foreign policy and household costs. The poll, conducted by Reuters Ipsos, found that voters are increasingly concerned about the cost of living, with only 25% approving of Trump's handling of this issue. This is a measure closely tied to everyday expenses such as food, rent, and fuel. The erosion in confidence on economic issues is a sharp departure from Trump's central economic message, which has long been a key part of his political appeal. The implications of this finding are significant, particularly given the 2024 presidential election. In that election, voter anxiety about affordability was a major factor in Biden's defeat. Trump campaigned heavily on a promise to restore prosperity and build a vibrant economy, but it appears that public frustration is deepening. With the midterms approaching, this finding underscores the need for Trump to address the concerns of voters, particularly on economic issues. As tensions escalate in the Middle East, a growing debate is emerging around the role of Iran's long-oppressed minorities in the region's conflict. The ongoing conflict in the Middle East has sparked a new opportunity for Iran's ethnic minorities to assert their rights. The war, which began in 2023, has drawn in countries such as Iran, Iraq, and Syria, and has raised concerns about the global energy market. The conflict has also brought attention to the plight of Iran's minority communities, who have long been ignored or mistreated by the regime in Tehran. Historically, the Azeris, Kurds, Balochs, and Arabs have faced discrimination and persecution under both the Shahs and the Islamic Republic. However, with the current conflict, these communities are now being given a platform to express their grievances and demand greater autonomy. The minority groups have been actively involved in the conflict, with some even fighting alongside government forces. The Kurds, in particular, have been a key player in the conflict, as their homeland spans across several countries, including Turkey, Iraq, and Syria. The Kurds have long been seeking greater autonomy, and the conflict has provided them with an opportunity to make their demands heard. The Iranian government, on the other hand, has been accused of using its military might to suppress the minority movements. The international community has been watching the situation closely, and many are hopeful that the conflict will bring about greater change for Iran's minority communities. As tensions in the Middle East continue to escalate, the United States has unveiled a 15-point peace plan for Iran amid a growing military presence. The U.S. has sent a 15-point peace plan to Iran, but Tehran has dismissed the idea of negotiating with the U.S. According to Pakistani officials, the White House had sent the plan to Iran, but details of the plan have not been made public. The Trump administration has ramped up efforts to end the Middle East war, with talks ongoing between Washington and Tehran. The 15-point peace plan, reportedly developed by the State Department, includes proposals for reducing tensions in the region, improving relations between the U.S. and Iran, and reducing the threat of terrorist groups. However, Iran has rejected the plan, stating that it does not address the country's core concerns. Meanwhile, the U.S. is deploying at least 1,000 troops to the Middle East. The deployment has sparked concerns that the U.S. is trying to put pressure on Iran, but Iran is also preparing for the possibility of U.S. troops on the ground. The deployment is part of a broader U.S. military buildup in the region, which has been ongoing since 2018. The deployment of U.S. troops to the Middle East matters because it has the potential to escalate tensions in the region. Iran has long been concerned about U.S. military presence in the region and has threatened to retaliate if U.S. troops are deployed on Iranian soil. The situation remains volatile, and it is unclear what the outcome of the U.S. peace plan will be. The Trump administration's efforts to end the Middle East war are ongoing, but it remains to be seen whether they will succeed. As tensions in the region continue to escalate, a sudden shift in the U.S. diplomatic stance has sparked a wave of retaliation from Iran. Iran has escalated strikes across the Middle East after U.S. President Donald Trump hinted at a possible deal to end the conflict in the region. The escalation comes as tensions between the U.S. and Iran remain high, with both sides accusing each other of aggression. The Iranian military has launched missile strikes against U.S. forces in Iraq, while also attacking Israeli targets and a U.S. military base in Saudi Arabia. The strikes were in response to the U.S. drone strike that killed top Iranian commander Qasem Soleimani last month. Trump's comments about a possible deal were made during a speech at a U.S. military base in Florida, where he said that all options are on the table when it comes to dealing with Iran. However, many analysts believe that Trump's comments were a veiled threat to Iran rather than a genuine offer of compromise. The situation is growing increasingly volatile, with many countries in the region on high alert. The United Nations Security Council has convened an emergency meeting to discuss the situation, and leaders from the region are urging calm and restraint. The escalation of the conflict has major implications for global security and the stability of the region. The U.S. and Iran have a long history of tensions, and any resolution will require careful diplomacy and negotiation. The international community is watching the situation closely, as any miscalculation could lead to further conflict and instability. As global efforts to reduce dependence on Middle Eastern energy intensify, a new player emerges: African nations with the potential to fill the energy gap. In the midst of a brewing conflict in the Middle East, African producers are emerging as potential energy victors. According to analysts, oil from Africa's major producers, particularly Nigeria, Angola, Gabon, Algeria, and Libya, are now seen as lower-risk alternatives to Iranian oil. This shift is driven by cheaper insurance premiums and predictable delivery times, making these volumes more appealing to European and Asian buyers. However, despite having an estimated 125 billion barrels of proven reserves, Africa's top 4 oil-producing countries have failed to capitalize on this opportunity. Nigeria, Angola, Libya, and Algeria have each seen their exports decline by 500,000 to 1 million barrels per year since their peaks. The inability of new discoveries to fill the gap has been attributed to a combination of conflicts, underinvestment, and Western energy transition politics. The implications of this are significant. As tensions rise in the Middle East, oil markets are becoming increasingly volatile. The shift towards African oil could provide a more stable alternative for European and Asian buyers. But for African producers, the window of opportunity remains open. With the right investments and infrastructure, these countries could capitalize on the growing demand for their oil. The question remains, can they overcome the hurdles that have held them back for so long? That's all for today's news recap. We'll continue to bring you updates on the latest developments from around the world. Thank you for watching. If you want to stay informed on the latest news, be sure to subscribe to our channel and follow us on social media. We'll see you in the next video. Good night, and we'll be back soon with more news.